Welcome, busy gamers. Today we're going to be talking about Marvel Snap. What's good, what's bad, and that all-important question, is it worth your time? Before we move on, if you're enjoying this content and you want to see more from me, please go ahead, like the video, and consider subscribing to the channel, as it's going to go a long way into helping me develop and improve. Also, I've broken this video down into chapters for you, so if you've joined me for another worth your time video in the past, feel free to skip to the section you're most interested in. Now, Marvel Snap, we'll get into the game overview. It's a fast-paced, streamlined, and strategic card game that throws out the formula on just what a quick game is by cutting the average time in half and making what is a 3 to 5 minute experience that still feels exciting and strategically deep. It has bass-heavy pumping music, impactful animations, and all your favorite Marvel characters, as well as a few I'm guessing even the most diehard fans have never heard of. This game is worth a look. Now, currently the game is only available on PC and mobile, and it was created by Second Dinner Games, releasing into early access October of 2022. The game does not have a story, and it throws you straight into the action under the tutelage of Nick Fury. He might be rough around the edges, but he will guide you during the first few matches you're going to play. Now, Snap has generic energy, or a mana curve for those that are familiar with card games. If you are familiar with this type of card games, you're going to feel right at home, and if you're new to the genre, you're going to quickly pick it up. It's relatively simple. Now, each player is going to start the game with a 3-card hand, and then they're going to be drawing a single card each turn. Energy ramps up over the course of each turn as well, with only 1 energy being available in the first round, and 6 energy being available to you in the 6th and final round. The crux of the overall game is around controlling the majority of 3 available locations. These locations are going to be represented by hexagonal areas in the center of play. Each location is unique and is chosen randomly from a pool of locations each game, just to kind of keep things fresh. They may apply one-time benefits or negative things. They may apply ongoing effects to cards when they're played at that location, and each location can accept a maximum of 4 cards per player. Control is going to be determined at the end by the total power of the cards that you've played there, in a mechanism similar to board games such as Smash Up or Shot and Totten. Now, if you're not familiar with those games, feel free to look them up, but let's say it's just a simple mechanic that has been taken from board games in the past. There's also a bit of a push your luck mechanism built into the game here, as players risk points or cubes in each game starting at 1, and then they double it at the end of the game. You're also allowed to trigger the game's trademark snap. This is a signal of confidence, so to speak, that you indeed have the upper hand in the match. Both players are allowed to snap a single time during the game, and if the risk becomes too much for you, there is also a retreat function that allows you to cut your losses early, and boy should more people use this. Now, we'll move into the main portion of the review now. So at the time of this review, I have played Marvel Snap for approximately 10 or 11 hours on PC. I also have a second account I play via mobile. Don't worry, you can connect the two if you wish, bringing your collection and your rank with you between devices. I wanted to try out a few things, see what separate progression paths were if I were to hold my collection at certain levels and things of that nature. I wanted to do that for the purpose of this review. I've played in only 1 completed season so far, and I kind of joined late in that one, reaching around 60 in total rank. With the current season, I believe I sit around late 50s or so in rank, and that's late November at this stage. So that's just a little bit about my history with the game. What is good about Marvel Snap? Let's go ahead and talk about the aesthetics first. I think this is first and foremost something that's going to impact you as soon as you open up the game and start to play. The cards look pretty unique and interesting. There's a lot of variety in animations here that have been added into virtually everything. This can both come as helpful visual cues and add impact and theme to card abilities. The They also include a ton of small details that are not necessary, but are nice when noticed. For example, when I drag Iceman around the board, he leaves a trail of frost in his wake. Multiple Man stretches and leaves after images. Iron Man has little rocket boosters coming off of his feet, things of that nature. Now, the things that are helpful visual cues are going to be, for early game players, things like Hawkeye, who creates a field. If you play into that field, it's going to give you a benefit. So it's both visually helpful as well as just actually adding a fun look to the game. So, second positive here, the deck building process and how each game plays out. It's fairly rich. It feels like there are a fair amount of strategic choices for such a short game, and moment-to-moment tactical decisions absolutely give you control on how quickly you can climb a season's ranked ladder. In addition, while there are defined archetypes that are proven at a high level of competitive play, even at 12 cards, there's typically a wide range of flex or tech slots that allow you to feel in control of your choices and make a deck that's your own without just going out and playing something that's truly subpar, meaning you don't have to net deck and you won't necessarily be at that much of a disadvantage here. The meta also seems fairly healthy to me at the moment. There are a few things that are very good, and there are a few things that are very easy and consistent. While the game's still new, I would say there are 4 or 5 of overall lines and styles of deck that see consistent and top-tier play, all of which have variations and customization ability that I mentioned before. Also, when there are featured locations, some of these things shift even further. Featured locations come about once a week and stay for 48 hours with about a 40% chance of appearing in each match. Progression in the game also feels fairly steady and rewarding and is well thought out. Their pool system builds everyone's collection in a similar manner through Pool 1 and Pool 2. Although it's not the same order early on, it makes for an even playing field by the end of those pools. I have a little bit of an issue of the way the progression goes in Pool 3, but that's quite a while into most people's Marvel Snap career, and I wouldn't necessarily worry about it. It's definitely not a deal breaker. It's also an extremely free-to-play friendly game. Cash purchases do very little, if anything at all, for you to create competitive advantages. Yes, you can absolutely accelerate how quickly you acquire cards, but you can't just go in and buy every single card that exists. That's not an option. Even if you were to spend, I don't know, hundreds of dollars per day, it wouldn't really accelerate your collection past a certain point. There's only so many credits you can buy, and credits are the limiting factor for progressing your account and collection level. All right, this means most of the purchasable content is related to aesthetics. They have a wide variety of those. They're themed alternate art cards. They're going to appeal to different demographics and fan bases. Some of them don't work for me, like pixels, but they may or may not work for you. Let's go ahead and move on to the down here. Actually, I've felt I had quite a bit to say about this particular game, which is a good sign. So what are the downsides here? Repetition. Unfortunately, it's the curse of a game being so short. If you plan to play for long stretches of time, the game can get somewhat repetitive, with many of your matchups playing out in very similar manners. That's not to say there aren't solid tactics and engaging moments in those games, but you're going to need to see games play out in drastically different manners between matches, or it's going to wear on you over time, or it's going to wear on several people over time. Now, I'm also going to call out what I like to call the luck element. This exists in all kinds of card games. I am a competitive card gamer outside of this. In some scenarios, I think the luck element is much higher than I would like in this particular game. This is especially telling when you look at locations. There are locations that play a card from each player's deck, or even a random card. This can result in someone getting a 20 power Infinite, and someone else getting Carnage to eat all of their stronger characters, resulting in a net power downgrade instead of upgrade for that location. There are also locations that destroy cards when they're played there with a 25% chance. Yes, you can absolutely run cards that specifically cannot be destroyed, but if you're running them specifically to deal with things like this location, your win and loss rate are definitely going to suffer for this regardless. I've seen both opponents and myself lose 3 to 4 cards in a row to the location, and then conversely the other, someone play 4 cards with no negative or adverse effect. These create What in my opinion is random chance and jackpot-like scenarios that do not add to a competitive game and actually subtract from a game as a whole when creating unwinnable games and changing the result in games that you have outplayed or been outplayed by your opponent. So I think that basically just creates some negative play experiences. Now, let's move on. Though a smaller complaint, I will say that many of the visual upgrades do feel lackluster to me. In some cases, I think they also make the card look worse. For the most part, all cards improve with their first and second upgrades. Those are the frame break, which basically zooms in on the card and allows it to punch out around the card's frame, and the 3D upgrade, which gives it some depth and background. After that, though, many of the upgrades fall off from my perspective from impact. Many of the animation upgrades are only a very tiny portion of the background or a shimmer effect that does not quite make sense, and instead just kind of looks like somebody took a Photoshop warp mod and added a random circle of warp on the card. Some are great, but they are inconsistent. Post-animation, the upgrades continue to climb in expense, but have even less impact on changing the card. It primarily changes the color of the exterior border of the card versus anything else about the card itself. Also, once a card is fully upgraded, it splits and grants you a copy of the card. Initially, this comes with a rainbow foil style background. I almost exclusively think this looks worse than the cards as they previously exist. And from my perspective, while this stands out, it is just less attractive. It also clutters your collection as it's going to continue to split over and over again. I believe each card has 16 plus different splits they can go to. Now, some of these do absolutely look better than others, and I like the noir black and white split, which is one of the rarest. These take a very long time to get, and you're probably going to have 8 plus copies of the exact same card before you see one. So I myself do have several copies of Ant-Man with the same art and now garish shimmers that I have to scroll by while making my decks. That's the good, that's the bad. Now we're going to talk about the ephemeral efficiencies. So this is kind of our channel's focus. How does Marvel Snap treat your time? The game has a 3 to 5 minute match limit that feels pretty satisfying, and due to deck size being only 12 cards, the deck building portion is quick. Sure, you could spend a ton of time tinkering with your cards, refining a deck, but the initial build time required to get you playing and having fun is virtually insignificant. Marvel Snap also has daily missions that generate every 8 hours, so you get 2 every 8 hours, and you can hold a maximum of 6 of them. I find that when that's full, it takes me less than 30 minutes to complete and clear all 6 missions. That's almost always the case. I find that when it's full, it can typically clear about 2 to give your space within the span of 2 to 3 games, meaning that if you feel the need to always keep up playing about 30 minutes and likely less every 24 hours. So basically you can keep up with the game by playing about 30 minutes a day or less every 24 hours. That gives you your maximum daily reward. That, of course, is not required, but in my opinion, that treats your time very well. You can step away, you're not really losing anything, again, because you stay in the pool that you're playing in. So let's move on to the final scores now. Overall, I'm going to give this game a 9. I strongly recommend this game. It comes in at the low price of free and such a minimal time investment that everyone should at least play a few matches to get a feel for whether they enjoy the game or not. Due to the repetition of this one, it is not a perfect 10 for me, but for its style and type of game, it is very close. The ephemeral efficiency score here is a 10. They knock it out of the park. I cannot think of much at all this game could do to be more respectful of your time while still providing a rewarding experience. This is the person with the minimal downtime's dream. In fact, the only complaint I had about this game is you could not target cards in your pool 3 to gain new cards. That's being added in the next update, so that is no longer a worry, and that was really the only thing that treated your time poorly. So that is my review of Marvel Snap. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you check out this excellent game. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, things like that, please feel free to leave them below and have a great time. Enjoy your gaming.